Hi there, I'm Kyle, and welcome back to Bedtime Verses with Kyle. Just a little poetry to help you get ready for bed. Today we're continuing with The Induction by Thomas Sackville. Where did we leave off? Oh, he just met death. His D'Artagnan out of the corpse he took, and in his hand a dreadful sight to see. With great triumph, eftsoons the same he shook, that most of all my fears affrayed me. His body dight with naught but bones perdie, the naked shape of man there saw I plain, all save the flesh, the sinew, and the vein. Lastly stood War, in glittering arms he clad, with visage grim, stern looks, and blackly hued. In his right hand a naked sword he had, that to the hilts was all with blood imbrued, and in his left the kings in kingdoms rude, famine and fire he held, and therewithal he razed towns and threw down towers and all. Cities he sacked and realms that whilom flowered in honor, glory, and rule above the best. He overwhelmed and all their fame devoured, consumed, destroyed, wasted, and never ceased, till he their wealth, their name, and all oppressed. His face forehued with wounds, and by his side there hung his targe with gashes deep and wide, in midst of which, depainted there, we found deadly debate, all full of snaky hair, that with a bloody fillet was he bound, outbreathing naught but discord everywhere, and round about were portrayed here and there the hugy hosts, Darius and his power, his kings, princes, his peers, and all his flower, whom great Macedo vanquished there in sight, with deep slaughter, despoiling all his pride, pierced through his realms and daunted all his might. Duke Hannibal beheld I there beside, and Cannae's field, Victor how he did ride, and woeful Romans that in vain withstood, and Consul Paulus covered all in blood. Yet saw I more, the fight at Thrasymene, and Trebi field, and eke when Hannibal, and worthy Scipio last in arms were seen, before Carthago gate, to try for all the world's empire to whom it should befall. There saw I Pompey and Caesar clad in arms, their hosts allied, and all their civil harms, with conquerors' hands forbathed in their own blood, and Caesar weeping over Pompey's head. Yet saw I Sulla and Marius where they stood, their great cruelty, and the deep blood shed of friends. Cyrus I saw and his host dead, and how the queen with great despite hath flung his head in blood, of them she overcome. Xerxes, the Persian king, yet saw I there, with his huge host that drank the rivers dry, dismounted hills and made the vales uprear, his host and all yet saw I plain perdie. Thebes I saw, all razed how it did lie, in heaps of stones, and Tyrus put to spoil, with walls and towers flat, even with the soil. But Troy, alas, methought above them all, it made mine eyes in very tears consume, when I beheld the woeful weird befall, that by the wrathful will of gods was come, and Jove's unmoved sentence and foredoom on Priam king, and on his town so bent, I could not lin, but I must there lament, and that the more, sith destiny was so stern, as force perforce there might no force avail, but she must fall, and by her fall we learn that cities, towers, wealth, world, and all shall quail. No manhood, might, nor nothing mought prevail. All were there pressed full many a prince and peer, and many a knight that sold his death full dear. Not worthy Hector, worthiest of them all, her hope, her joy, his force is now for naught. O Troy, 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 there is no boot but bale. The hugy horse within thy walls is brought, thy turrets fall, thy knights that whilom fought in arms amid the field are slain in bed, thy gods defiled, and all thy honor dead. The flames uprising and cruelly they creep, from wall to roof till all to cinders waste. Some fire the houses where the wretches sleep, some rush in here, some run in there as fast, and everywhere or sword or fire they taste. The walls are torn, the towers whirled to the ground. There is no mischief but may there be found. Cassandra yet there saw I how they hailed, from palace house with spurcled tress undone, her wrists fast bound, and with Greeks' rout impaled. And Priam eke in vain how he did run to arms, whom Pyrrhus with despite hath done, to cruel death, and bathed him in the bane of his son's blood before the altar slain. But how can I describe the doleful sight, that in the shield so lifelike fair did shine, sith in this world I think was never white, could have set forth the half, not half so fine. I can no more but tell how there is seen fair Ilium fall in burning red gleeds down, and from the soil great Troy, Neptunus' town. Herefrom, when scarce I could mine eyes withdraw, that filled with tears as doth the springing well, we passed on so far forth till we saw rude Acheron, a loathsome lake to tell, that boils and bups up swelth as black as hell, where grisly Charon at their fixed tide still ferries ghosts unto the farther side. The aged god no sooner sorrow spied, but hasting straight unto the bank apace, with hollow call unto the rout he cried, to swerve apart and give the goddess place. Straight it was done, when to the shore we pace, where, hand in hand, as we then linked fast, within the boat we are together placed. And forth we launched full fronted to the brink, when with unwonted weight the rusty keel began to crack as if the same should sink. We hoise up mast and sail, and in a while we fet the shore, where scarcely we had while for to arrive, but that we heard anon a three-sound bark confounded all in one. We had not long forth passed, but that we saw black Cerberus, the hideous hound of hell, with bristles reared and with a three-mouthed jaw, for dinning the air with his horrible yell, out of the deep dark cave where he did dwell. The goddess straight he knew, and by he peaced and couched while that we passed by. Thence come we to the horror and the hell, the large great kingdoms and the dreadful reign of Pluto in his throne, where he did dwell, the wide waste places and the hugy plain, the wailings, shrieks, and sundry sorts of pain, the sighs, the sobs, the deep and deadly groan, earth, air, and all resounding plaint and moan. Here pulled the babes, and here the maids unwed, with folded hands their sorry chance bewailed. Here wept the guiltless slain, and lovers dead, that slew themselves when nothing else availed. 1,000 sorts of sorrows here that wailed, with sighs and tears, sobs, shrieks, and all ye fear, that, oh, alas, it was a hell to hear. We stayed us straight, and with a rueful fear beheld this heavy sight, while from mine eyes the vapored tears down stilled here and there, and sorrow eke in far more woeful wise took on with plaint upheaving to the skies her wretched hands, that with her cry the rout gan all in heaps to swarm us round about. Lo here, quoth Sorrow, princes of renown, that whilom sat on top of fortune's wheel, now laid full low like wretches whirled down, e'en with one frown that stayed but with a smile. And now behold the thing that thou erewhile saw only in thought, and what thou now shalt hear recount the same to Kaiser, king, and peer. Then first came Henry, Duke of Buckingham, his cloak of black all pilled and quite forworn, wringing his hands, and fortune oft doth blame, which of a duke hath made him now her scorn. With ghastly looks, as one in manner lorn, oft spread his arms, stretched hands he joins as fast, with rueful cheer, and vapored eyes upcast. His cloak he rent, his manly breast he beat, his hair all torn, about the place it lay. My heart so mote to see his grief so great, as feelingly methought it dropped away. His eyes they whirled about withouten stay, with stormy sighs the place did so complain, as if his heart at each had burst in twain. Thrice he began to tell his doleful tale, and thrice with sighs did swallow up his voice, at each of which he shrieked so withal, as though the heavens rived with the noise, till at the last, recovering his voice, supping the tears that all his breast berained, on cruel fortune, weeping, thus he plained. And there it ends. I suspect there is more to come, and he never got to it. That's a pretty frightening account, isn't it? But very well done. Very well versed, if you will. But we're almost out of time here, so thank you for joining me for Bedtime Verses with Kyle. You can find me here, subscribe to my website and my YouTube, and there'll be new readings every weekday night at 11 p.m. Good night. Sleep tight.